Welcome, everyone. It's really a pleasure to have everyone here. We have Matthew, Robin, and Neale, both authors of the EdTech book. Today's session and recording is about where are the opportunities in EdTech. We're very lucky to have people from Vietnam, Robin, people in Hong Kong, but representing Monash University of Malaysia, Neale, and someone in the US, Matthew, out of California, all together to share some of the biggest insight and trends that we've seen in the EdTech market. Before starting this recording will take about 30 minutes. I would get all the authors to be able to introduce themselves and share more about what do they believe are the biggest opportunity in EdTech. So Matthew, maybe talk about yourself.
Hey, I'm Dr. Matt Rhoads, and I have my hats in both K-12 and higher education. For my higher education, I teach new pre-service teachers how to integrate teaching strategies of how we learn with EdTech tools to amplify student learning. And then I have my hat in K-12 where I teach students at the secondary level with all sorts of educational technology. And also I have a number of books with one coming out in July on navigating the present and future of education. And I'm excited about EdTech because that has opened up learning for us to be at any time and anywhere, and we can really amplify student learning, creativity, and expression through it.
Thanks, Matthew. Robin, what about yourself?
I'm Robin Nguyen, is CEO and founder of IBI Global. We created IBI Global to really serve professionals to learn languages and also innovations. Yeah, we were very excited about EdTech because we think only EdTech can fix a lot of traditional learning models are struggling now, and this really happened right now.
And last but certainly not least, Neale.
Hi, everyone. And yes, Neale, in teaching in Malaysia, Monash University, Malaysia. I'm excited about EdTech because initially it was all about the efficiencies that technology can bring to the transformative experience that we bring students through as educationalists. But increasingly, I've just become more obsessed with how do you actually translate your authenticity and authority through technology? And this is where I'm excited to contribute on. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So starting about the opportunities in EdTech, and looking at the panel that we have here, we have K-12, we have emerging market, we have also higher education. Maybe starting with you, Neale. How do you believe higher education have been able to adapt in the last 12 months during COVID? And is this going to be staying, or do you think we're going to go back to normal?
Okay, let's the second question first. I don't think it's going to go back to normal. There's going to be a hybrid approach to education going forward, or hybrid meaning both online and offline for a lot of courses in the university where I'm at the moment. That's our plan going forward from now on, where lecturers are being asked, do you want to stay online in years to come, or do you want to do a mixed mode, online and offline? And so universities are actually strategizing in that way already. And I think the biggest shock that COVID brought was I was always on the edge of using technology when it was never asked to, but COVID just forced all staff to, sorry, we've got to try Zoom now. Sorry, we've got to try this technology now. Why? Because university campus is closed. So we just have to do it. So it's forced all staff who weren't innovators to suddenly innovate. And I think in that way, it's had a huge human resource pressure effect, especially because there's always a curve of innovation where those at the front end of the curve are always trying new things. But COVID has actually pushed those at the back end of the curve, or those in the middle of the curve, that were never ever incentivized through normal institutional means to actually try things new or try risk in using technology for the first time.
And I think that's a very good point, Neale. And Robin, I have a question. When we think about the emerging market and when we think about Vietnam, we often think about being the first one to adopt new technology, right? There's only a basis for trying something new and something different. So have you seen the adoption of EdTech or technology solution in school to be much more natural in Vietnam, or do you think you have a very similar, friction point when it comes to giving the tools to either the institution or the teachers to use innovation and technology?
Yeah, before the pandemic, I think about a couple of years ago, even when we have learners, we still have to educate them how to log in, how to use the virtual live classroom or everything. And when we go to K-12, we talk about EdTech. People don't care about that a lot. But when the pandemic comes, even the elderly people that try to get to log in stuff, like Zoom or something like that, because the meetings in the companies and and all that. And now K-12 or even higher education over here, they have to really use EdTech into the classroom or into their operation system. And we can see a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of administration solution for EdTech in Vietnam couldn't monetize. Now they have been monetized. And that is really a good opportunities for a lot of EdTech that is already been experienced from before the pandemic, also in the pandemic too.
And that brings you, Matthew, right? So you said you're working a lot with teachers and to get them to understand how to integrate EdTech solutions. And can you give me an example where they fully understand the value of working with an EdTech or using an EdTech solution? So they go, yeah, that's a no-brainer. And can you give me another example where they actually don't know how to even begin into it?
Yeah, so I'll first start off with just don't even know how to start beginning into it. So we all know about slideshows, Google Slideshow, PowerPoint. It's not all about just having that be a slideshow and you have your learners passively look at the slides. It's now the opportunity, you have tools to add in where you teach teachers how to integrate slides where students can interact with those slides. So whether it's draggables, whether it's incorporating text, but you do it strategically. So you could, for example, use an add-in like Nearpod, and we're on Zoom, and we can do a strategy called Think, Pair, Share, where essentially you have about 30-second wait time, and then you pair in a breakout room for about 2 to 5 minutes. And then essentially you answer the prompt or solve the math problem at hand. And then maybe you have a prompt thereafter to discuss how you may have done that. And then at the very end, you come back into the main room, and then the teacher calls on a group of students or shares all the responses and goes through and determines, okay, were there any errors there? Can I provide that whole class feedback? So that would be one example of incorporating a strategy that helps people learn with something like interactive slides that I call with like Nearpod, Pear Deck, could even do it with Google Slides, etc. And teaching new teachers how to do that is essentially they've learned from their experiences in school what that may look like, but they haven't tried to initiate it within an in-person classroom or or a blended classroom, or we call now concurrent, where you're teaching students online and in person at the same time. So that's essentially a big area that we've grown in, and that teachers, whether you're a novice, beginner, or veteran, had to learn this past year and continue to learn. And I think one of the big opportunities now is for teachers to learn how to incorporate the learning strategies with EdTech.
And actually, if I keep on pushing you on this one, Matthew, do you think who needs more convincing, the teachers or the institution themselves, right? Because sometimes you need to sell at the school level, even though it's the teacher buying, right? So can you give me can you give me your thoughts about this, and then maybe Neale, if you also want to step in on this one.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to see, especially in the United States, it's super regional, but it also depends. It's kind of funny, to be honest, is that in our country, it kind of falls more on whether you're in a blue or red district, to be honest, and whether you've had more students in person versus in a blended or online scenario. I would say that with teachers, I'd say it doesn't matter about the age. It just matters on your level of curiosity and innovation. And the institutions themselves, I think that the schools that have more money, they have more educational technology. So I think that just more teachers are using EdTech to have more access to the tools and to really high quality professional development. And that's where I think part of your question, where the institution itself is powering those professional learning sessions for teachers.
But actually, what you were saying on that, you were saying, so the more money a school has, the more they able. And the issue be, EdTech is also about making education accessible to people that cannot. And so don't we have a risk of widening a gap here when the opportunity would be to almost flatten inequalities?
You're 100% on the money there, but also too, it becomes cheaper. So for example, California receives this much per pupil versus a state like Mississippi that may receive less, may receive a little bit less in New York. But the thing is that EdTech has become a much less expensive for the tool use and to provide licenses. And then there's also a lot of tools that you can use for free that has been really helpful for teachers that just can ascribe to. So ultimately, there are chances where if you have a lot of money, that could be really beneficial, but at the same time, it's come down in price. And in our country, for example, with the COVID release funds, almost every student in America has access to the device. And really the biggest gap we have is with high-speed internet now.
Okay, well,
if I could just add to that, Janice. Matthew made a really good point about curiosity, and I'm coming from the university level, and in my experience, I've been at 8 different universities in my 25-year career here. Institutions at the university level, they haven't always been the leaders in technology implementation. For the most part, they're run by budgets, and they all prefer OPEX to CAPEX. And technology to a lot of universities, the institutional level, is a CAPEX. And when you tell an institution, oh, I want CAPEX portion out of your budget, and by the way, in 2, 3 or 4 years' time, that technology needs to be upgraded, then people are reluctant to do full-scale adoption of technology. So these innovations have come in pockets at the university level and have been used maybe alongside teaching and education grants for those innovators to try out. They've been in their little corner, whereas the majority of the teaching has gone along its normal, innovative, untechnology way. And so it was never a problem of access at the university level, maybe at the K-12 level. I think the bigger problem at the university level is engagement, getting students engaged. So a lot has been written about using technology to replace lectures, but it doesn't necessarily mean that students are more engaged with that content. And I think a big challenge at the university level is combining with that technology. There's a greater responsibility on the teacher to be curious, be fascinated, to be an authority, to be authentic in that use of technology. And the technology is not that just there as a content replacement tool for that traditional talking textbook lecture.
I think that's a very good point. But can you give me an example of, if you were to advise an EdTech startups to sell, like, would you would you tell them to make a bigger push around, I don't know, the ROI, the efficiency that the teacher would gain, or the pedagogy? Like, what kind of the killer argument? You know, in education, people have time, and so the value of time might not be as big as in other tech sectors, right? So do you over highlight the pedagogy? Do you over highlight the technology? Is it more an ROI game or an engagement game? Where do you see this?
Yeah, so I did some consulting with a large EdTech company in North America that provides 24/7 tutoring to students. And their major problem was that on their onboarding process is that you got to really convince teachers, one, that this is something that's going to save them time and efficiencies. And also, two, is that how can we deploy this tool in our instruction? So where can we deploy the tutoring in our instruction to help our students? So for example, they do a lot of essay revision. So you need to teach teachers how to incorporate the tool to help them within the student writing process. So going through different types of drafts at the beginning of the writing process and then at the very end. Also, they have a lot of math tutoring. So we talked a lot about incorporating the 24/7 math tutors during the lecture. So having them available during independent study time just to work on a problem, and you assign a student a problem to work with a tutor. And ultimately, the argument for the teacher is that you're saving them time because you can't access all 35, 40 students in a classroom at once. And if you give them a tool where they have the opportunity to do that, then that saves them time and it helps their instruction. It helps their students in the class receive that help for their learning.
If I just add to that, like your question, Janice, about, you know, what would we advise an EdTech startup? My number one advice is whatever they're pitching at K-12, they're pitching at university, it doesn't matter what level, to partner with an education institution at that level as a project, so that EdTech startup really has something on the ground operationally to understand what they're bringing to the table, whether it works or not. So I think that they have to partner. They cannot say, we're going to develop this platform and we don't want to talk to any university or K-12 until it's developed and ready for release. I think that's the last thing that an EdTech startup should do.
Thanks for this. I think it's a great point. Robin, great to have you back. We're talking about, you know, how is it best for EdTech startups to sell into a school, and either it's at the teacher level or the institution level. But maybe if I take the case of, you know, in Vietnam, do you see a lot of EdTech solution being done locally, or do they import EdTech solution from more developed market? What do you see as a trend?
Yeah. So for new solution like administrations or into the K-12 or something like, you know, a collaboration solution or something like that, it's done by themselves. Some big traditional schools or, you know, like English language centers, they are very big already. And now they want to transfer. So they need to import or have to work with an EdTech partner to bring something into their school or center. So in that way, they can get something new to the trends. So, but the thing is, there are many solutions already done in the world. A lot of import from like Singapore or Europe or something like that. They already came here too, and it's make the EdTech landscape to be more competitive in Vietnam or even emerging markets.
And you know, from you all have, you know, a great expertise on EdTech, and you've been around, you've seen what is there. What do you think is the opportunity currently untapped Right. So if there was one business idea, one tool to help schools or teachers that doesn't exist yet, because for example, on our side, what we've seen on Supercharger Venture side, you have a lot of people now creating content. Everyone creates specialized content in different fields. You have a lot of reporting. But for example, companies that only do, a lot of startups say, I do content and my content is highly engaging. But I haven't seen a lot of people just saying, you know what, I'm going to use, I don't know, AI to really make sure that engagement is happening, whatever the content you provide. So almost an infrastructure level. So we see a gap here, for example. But I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what do you think is currently being underserved in the market?
Yeah, for a new company of startups, for sure, they need to find the market niche, right? Some ways underserved. But if we talk about 5 years ago, especially from 2005 until before the pandemic, a lot of solutions coming out comparing to the period before that. And almost that all the EdTech solutions are already formed, you know, from AI, from administration solution to content provider to AI, and now it's coming like virtual reality or something. And also the difficult thing now is some companies or products or service they have already positioned, not like before. They not positioned yet, and customers don't know what to choose. So I think that personalized learning and AI is still something that the market demanding. But what an EdTech company try to serve that, then we need to see that EdTech company what strengths they are, what experience they come from, and they see the pain point from where, and they put the AI and also the personalized learning into the field that they see still lacking something. So even the AI is still not working completely yet. If an EdTech company still try to go deeper and deeper in AI, they can solve a lot of problems in EdTech, and then also can put it into personalized learning to make the learners and also maybe teachers or a school to make something better.
If I can add something onto that, like your question about, you know, what's been underserved, I'll give you one word, and that is gamification. Gamification of the content, especially in business schools that I'm in. Like Harvard Business School have gone some direction towards that way in creating simulation games, and I've used one of their simulation games for several years and was successful, but then it just got out of date. And so, you know, updating the content associated with simulation games. And just another example of something that I just didn't think would work, just worked like in the last semester and semester before, both undergraduate and postgraduate students, like just a simple tool like Kahoot that creates a game of multiple choice questions, but the game is that you get more points if you answer faster. Just a simple thing like that, it just changes the behavior of the students in the online environment. So what's been underserved, gamification, but does it have to be elaborate? No, Kahoot's not that elaborate. It's just so simple, and it creates gamification of any content that you design into that.
And I'm thinking for underserved is that I truly believe that EdTech companies need to do a better job at ongoing training for teachers and just basically creating umbrella professional learning that can be accessed at any time for teachers, and then having that support, whether it's just always having that training available, someone that they can always talk to, someone that's actually going to the school and providing that in-person training, I think that's where the biggest gap is. You could have the best tool in the world, but if no one knows how to use it, one, or two, they don't find it, they don't know about its efficiencies or its effectiveness or how to integrate strategies to help people learn with it, then it's just going to be another tool that you can buy a license for and it will just collect dust. So I essentially think it's all about EdTech companies providing really just top the line asynchronous training and having that ongoing support for educators, whether in person or online and on social media, so that they can see the new innovations and see how it can be effective tools for students.
And maybe in closing, obviously the last year has been tough for everyone in different ways, personally, professionally, psychologically. Can you all share me one story? It can be either a story, a comment, something you've overheard, something you've done yourself. But, we like EdTech for good, right? So a nice story that you've heard about education technology being used that either help a student put a smile or anything positive. So one example of EdTech for good, either that you know personally or that you've read about or that you heard of.
I'll kick that off. Just, I hate to talk about myself, but I put a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I get feedback from students from Scotland saying that, I really like the content of teaching international accounting. I said, what aspect did you like? He said, well, I'm enrolled at Berkeley and I'm currently doing a summer placement over in Glasgow, Scotland, and your teaching is so much better than my current lecturer that I've been involved with. And so to me, it's great to see, feedback from someone halfway around the world. But to me, there's so much opportunity to reach, not every teacher style fits what students want. And so the great thing is that speaks to me that you can go online and actually find a different teaching style that can help provide that transformative experience, and that's for every individual student around the world. And I think that's so special about what we have with YouTube and online videos today.
I think this year, just in general, is just allowing my students to access material at any time and anywhere and to have quality instruction. Just for example, just having everything on my LMS, all my interactive lectures, everything that we do in our class, and it provides equity. I mean, even if you can't be during when we're online or when we're in person, if you can't be there, then you can access our content and get a similar opportunity as other students in our class. And to me, that's, something that we've not been able to do very well for a long time. And now I think we're finally turning the corner in K-12 where we can have that opportunity for students. And, you can have students, for example, in my class attending a Zoom, whether they're in their car or they're going to an appointment. I've had that at the graduate level as well as my K-12 kids. And then same thing with my wife's student who's in primary. They go on a vacation and they can still attend class and they can still be access to the material and keep learning. And doesn't matter if you're in school or not, the learning is always there and it can be continuous. So that's really the big positive thing for me.
Robin?
Yeah. So I still believe that EdTech can help the quiet student to speak out loud. That's my experience too, and I like that one because I see a lot of students even can learn English better with the EdTech. It's not like our learners in our platform.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think for all of you, I really wanted to thank you on behalf of the Supercharger team for sharing your insights. This session is recorded and will be available to the public. Matthew, please let us know the book that you're having coming up in July. Neale, please let us know your YouTube channel so people take a look at it. And Robin, if there's anything that you want people to be aware of your own initiative, again, please let us know, and we'll make sure we'll leave it in the comment so that people can actually refer to all the work that you've been doing in the space for the last few years.